Good evening. Welcome to our media veil. After today's Emergency Advisory Committee, we have Interim City Manager Adam Laughlin, and to start us off, Mayor Don Iveson.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you all for joining us here today. Today, the Emergency Advisory Committee received an update from administration on the impact COVID-19 is having on our city and on city operations. As Adam mentioned in today's presentation, the data from the Edmonton zone continues to be alarming as case levels are very high and there continues to be significant strain on the healthcare system. Because of rising community transmission, we should expect to see infection rates continue to climb in our city, which is why it's crucial that we now follow the new public health orders to the T to bend that curve down over the coming weeks. As the provincial restrictions come into effect, many people are engaging in last-minute shopping and appointments, and I would like to stress that if you are getting some last-minute haircuts or massages, for example, that you please follow the public health measures and try your best to avoid crowded areas. This is important so that we don't see another spike in cases after the restrictions come into place. We need to protect our healthcare system now. So if you're able to, I urge you to stay home as much as possible and find safe ways to support local businesses like curbside pickup or ordering online. Being proactive here now will save lives. A vaccine is coming, but for now we know how to fight this virus ourselves. Stay home, wear a mask, keep your distance, practice good hand hygiene, and follow all the public health orders. So let's hibernate for health, for each other, for our healthcare workers and healthcare systems so that we can get past this faster and with fewer deaths and less disruption. I also want to acknowledge the tremendous toll this virus is taking on pretty much at this point everybody's mental health. And this has not been easy, and many may be feeling burnt out, anxious, maybe even hopeless. And the prospect of another shutdown can only add to these feelings. But if you're feeling this way, please reach out for help. Call 211 for 24-hour information and a referral line that can connect you to social, health, and government services should you need them. Your community is here for you. Now, I know I'm not looking forward to not being able to see my parents or my friends, especially during this holiday season when so many of us would like nothing more than to be with all the people that we love. But it's important to remember that all of this is temporary, and we will get through this. And I'm continuously impressed by how resilient Edmontonians are, and I'm so proud of how many of you have come together to take care of your communities during these trying times. Crises like this one serve as the true test of community. It's not how we behave when it's easy and we can do whatever we want. It's how we hold up and how we're there for each other during tough times like this. Showing that we can do the right thing for public health and for each other and for vulnerable people in our community will be a tremendous source of inspiration for generations to come, because we will have done our part to save lives, even when that felt hard and hopeless. Now, with these new restrictions coming into effect, many of us will be spending more time at home. But for some people in our community, even having a home is still an unattainable luxury right now, which is why, as we heard in today's presentation from City Administration, the City continues to work with our agency partners to provide 24/7 options for Edmontonians experiencing homelessness across several different locations around the city. I also will continue to tirelessly advocate to provincial and federal governments for additional housing with embedded supports so that we can provide those experiencing homelessness today with the stability and safety that only housing can provide. Businesses in our city are also struggling, as many of them are subject to continuing restrictions and others have now been ordered to shut down again. I'm continuing to advocate as well for support for businesses, and had a very hopeful conversation with Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Freeland yesterday, where she assured me that Under these new restrictions, it is very likely that Edmonton businesses would now qualify for the maximum federal support available, just like struggling businesses in other provinces have been able to secure. It was also promising to hear that the province would expand its small and medium business relaunch grant to make more businesses eligible for needed funding. And as we know, we're also currently here at City Hall in the midst of our budget deliberations. We're almost finished. The end is in sight of securing a 0% tax levy for this year so that households and businesses don't see any increase in their property taxes from this year to the next. And this is in addition to the COVID-19 business supports the city continues to offer, including the economic recovery grants, our one-on-one business support, and other incentives for business relaunch that are not necessarily available from other orders of government. So you can find the full list of these supports easily put together for you at edmonton.ca/businessinfo. I'll now pass it on to Adam, who can explain the implications of these new public health measures on city operations and how the City of Edmonton will support enforcement and monitoring of these new restrictions.
Thank you. This afternoon at the Emergency Advisory Committee, administration provided an update on the impacts of the province's new public health restrictions on city services. The City of Edmonton supports the province's decision to tighten restrictions on social gatherings. Active cases have been growing exponentially, and we need to do everything we can to ensure the opportunity to spread transmission is minimized. Through closures and restrictions on behaviors, the new rules limit the choices and actions for residents and businesses for the next 4 weeks. Based on our current understanding of the orders, recreation facilities are closed until restrictions are lifted by the province. The City of Edmonton will continue to offer virtual programming, and we are looking at closing ahead of the date mandated by the province out of the abundance of caution. In our River Valley parks and outdoor amenities, indoor amenity buildings will be closed, but washrooms will remain open and will be attended. Outdoor registered program and equipment rentals are postponed. Senior centers and facilities operated by the city and by partners like the Orange Hub and soccer centers are closed to the public. Candy Cane Lane will operate as a two-way drive-through event with parking banned each evening from 5 p.m. to midnight. Outdoor ice rinks remain open, and we are adding staff to manage overcrowding and at the overcrowding at the Victoria Oval and other River Valley areas. Public access to the Valley Zoo is currently limited with time ticketing and capacity limits, and we're working through some operational issues and waiting to obtain more clarity from the province. But our approach is likely to keep the zoo open but restrict attendance to household members only. In a week where the focus has been on limits and grim statistics, it's important to remind everyone that there is a great deal to celebrate and to be hopeful about. News that the first limited delivery of vaccine will happen next week is a very positive sign that we will eventually put the pandemic behind us. While we wait for immunizations for the population at large, we should recognize that there are lots of opportunities to celebrate the holidays and the winter season, but this year will be different and focused on being safe. Edmonton continues to be an interesting and welcoming place to live with people who are resourceful, caring, and have tremendous community spirit. The city will continue to make edmonton.ca as a trusted resource for information and inspiration. We encourage Edmontonians to shop locally whenever possible and build acts of kindness into your interactions with others. Thank you, and happy to take questions.
We have 3 media outlets joining us today. First, we'll go to Global and Vinesh Pratap. Vinesh, go ahead.
Thank you so much. And since, Adam, you're there at the podium, we'll start with you. So, Adam, you mentioned that, in the last week, 399 enforcement actions with, as I find my numbers, but I can't find it now, sorry about that, 28 tickets issued and 371 warnings. So as we head into this new round of restrictions, and with now peace officers granted these new powers, how much more forceful, if you will the enforcement efforts be?
Thanks Vinesh, I've provided direction to our folks to continue to provide the education component, but to be a bit more deliberate in terms of enforcement. And so the numbers you referenced are from December 3rd to December 9th. And prior to that, I would say the previous months have been predominantly warnings. So that's a measure that they are starting to step up with the ticketing. And again, I think I mentioned this last week. I said you shouldn't be surprised to see more tickets. And quite frankly, we're feeling like we need to do that to make sure people get the point that this is serious, and we will enforce these restrictions to ensure that everybody's health is taken into consideration during this time.
Vinesh, do you have a follow-up?
I do, and this one's for the mayor. I know, the administration has purview here in terms of closing city amenities like we saw in the spring. With the spray parks and everything like that, but it always ends up back in your offices in terms of complaints and everything like that on why these amenities are closing. When do you think we'll reach a potential point where some of these outdoor amenities might close if there is more overcrowding? Or let me rephrase that: is that a possibility down the road if the situation gets more dire, like the dog parks, the toboggan hills, the outdoor ice surfaces?
I think it's a big city with a lot of public spaces, and we had a couple of hiccups at the beginning when it warmed up in the spring, and we had some crowding issues, but then people got the message. And we are a winter city, but I think the pressure will be different. But that said, we will be monitoring very, very closely. As Adam just said, sounded more like Sheriff Laughlin there for a minute. Enforcement is going to step up, which I fully support. But last resort, I think, would be a closure of spaces that people need to be outside, to get some fresh air, to get some relief from being otherwise asked to stay home for the most part. So we'll monitor it very, very closely, but at this point, I think best efforts are being made to ensure that there are lots of options for people to get outside, to get that fresh air. It's very important for mental health, especially at this time of year, and for continuing physical health, which is a contributing factor to resiliency to the virus and to just the difficulty that we're going to be facing with the stress of it. So we'll work hard to put as many options in place for folks to be outside, and then support people making the right decisions with signage, with education, with enforcement, and then closure, I think, would be last resort. The Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Vinesh. Next up, Dustin Cook from Post Media.
Thank you very much. I think both of my questions are for Adam. Adam, firstly, a point of clarity. I believe you said that the rec centers would be closing earlier than mandated, but the release yesterday said end of day Saturday, and the restrictions come into place first thing Sunday. So can you clarify that, and when are the rec centers closing?
Still working through that, Dustin. It was conversation this afternoon at the executive leadership team table that we wanted to accelerate that, and we're just working through logistics in how we can do that. So things are moving fast, and we want to make sure, out of the abundance of caution, that we minimize. And it came up a little bit at the Emergency Advisory Committee, like people making that last-ditch effort to whatever it is in terms of the restrictions that are coming. So we'll provide more specifics, but we are working to accelerate that closure.
Dustin, you can go ahead with your second question.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that, Adam. Second question is for you as well. With the closure of these rec facilities for 4 weeks, are we going to be seeing temporary layoffs? And do you have any details on that and when they will take place?
Unfortunately, and many businesses are going through this as well. We will have to take steps to do temporary layoffs. Tough step, tough year. 2020 has been extraordinarily difficult, not only on citizens, but our staff at the City of Edmonton, and unfortunately that's something that we're going to have to advance as well. We're working through those specifics as we speak, but it's unfortunately a necessary step to make sure that we are following the restrictions that are needed in place at this time in Edmonton.
Thank you, Dustin. Next, we'll go to Natasha Reeb with CBC.
Hi, thanks, Adam. It's for you as well. And I just want to expand slightly on the enforcement, not to make you any more of a sheriff than you already appeared to be, apparently. But when you say you'll be more deliberate in terms of enforcement, I just want to get a sense of, so far, city peace officers and bylaw really could just enforce the face covering bylaw. But now with all of these new measures that the province is putting out there, do you think that there will be an adjustment in what peace officers will be looking for?
Yes, Natasha, the adjustment is happening as part of the health order and the health orders that are in place and the permission by justice to allow our peace officers to enforce them. They've gone through training in terms of the interpretation of the health orders and application of the health orders. And so they're prepared to take those steps. So when they, again, the latest restrictions were just announced. The orders have just been signed. So there's still some unpacking on those, but the training will happen and they will start to enforce those orders as soon as possible. The one thing that I would identify is that what we're trying to do is be very integrated with the police service and ensure that we're doing this in a coordinated manner. But yes, our peace officers, our transit peace officers, our peace officers, our bylaw officers will be enforcing the public health orders.
Right. I guess I just mean, since for months now they've been focusing on the face covering bylaw. So, will a significant change happen in terms of monitoring restaurants, bars, casinos, even libraries and stuff like that?
So in terms of the monitoring component, that was happening throughout the year. It's just that they weren't empowered to enforce those orders. So they were monitoring the restaurants, the bars, the casinos, the other venues, our own facilities, but they couldn't take action if there was an obvious violation of the health orders. They would have to alert Alberta Health Services or the police if it was significant enough. So they're sort of, it's not the right description, but their routine did include monitoring these areas, but they weren't empowered to enforce, and now they are.
Right. No, I understand that. Okay, I just wanted to know if there would be more of a, because of the limited resources, whether there would be a bit of a shift to these new provincial public health orders. But it sounds as though it'll be everything. Can I just clarify that they are then empowered to hand out the $1,000 fine under the provincial health order?
That's correct. And the one thing that these orders actually do, the latest restrictions, is that they are more restrictive. And so it does actually allow the enforcement, the peace officers, it does make it somewhat easier. It's a question of whether the facility is closed or not going into the facility to determine whether they're following the previous health restrictions that were put in place. So it's not that they have, the workload is lightened up, but their ability to cover more ground has been enabled by these more restrictive health orders.
Right. Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks, Natasha. Do we have any other questions on the line right now? No? Okay. Well, thanks to our city manager, the mayor, and our interpreters today. Have a good evening and stay safe.
Thank you.